Alright, we need to have a real conversation about the Detroit Pistons. Not the they're rebuilding Pistons, not the give them 3 more years Pistons. I'm talking about the Pistons that quietly flipped the switch. And now the league is pretending they don't see it. Because if you've actually been watching, not box score watching, not Twitter highlight watching, really watching, Detroit looks different and it all starts with identity. Look, I'll start with the obvious. Cade Cunningham isn't just having a good year. He's playing like a franchise cornerstone who finally understands that this is his league to manipulate. The pace, it's controlled, the mid-range is surgical, the passing is elite, the confidence, it's always been there, and Cade isn't rushing anymore, he's dictating. He's walking defenders into traps, he's dragging bigs into space, he's reading weak side rotations like a 10-year vet, and what separates his version of Cade from previous seasons? He's finishing through contact. Before, he'd finesse you. Now, he'll bump you, spin off you, and still kiss it off the glass. That's MVP growth. When Detroit needs a bucket late, the ball isn't just in his hands. The defense knows it's over. That's superstardom creeping in. And if Detroit ends up atop, and if Detroit stays at the first seed in the East, the MVP conversations won't be optional anymore. Now look, I also want to shout out JB Bickerstaff because he really changed the tone of this team when he joined. You don't just wake up and become tough. The Pistons needed structure, and JB Bickerstaff brought structure. JB teams defend, period. He doesn't care about aesthetics, he doesn't care about pretty basketball. He cares about your rotations, physicality, and accountability. And you can see it in their body language. Miss an assignment, you're hearing about it. Blow a rotation, you're sitting. Don't box out, it's on film the next morning. Detroit went from a young and talented to organized and violent. And that is a scary transformation. Look, the defensive identity with this team is real. Now here's where it gets interesting, because when I say Detroit might have the best defensive duo in the league, I know some of y'all are gonna pause, but hear me out. Isaiah Stewart is one of the most switchable, physically disruptive bigs in the NBA. He's undersized, and that's exactly why he's dangerous. He guards up, he guards down, he fights through screens, he talks first, he hits first, he rotates hard, he doesn't take possessions off. He plays like every possession is personal. Now add the spirit of Isaiah Thomas to this franchise's DNA. I'm not saying he's gonna lace up. I'm saying defensively, this team embodies what he represented. Pressure, pride, and punishment. That edge, that nastiness, that willingness to make you uncomfortable, that's Detroit basketball. Stewart sets the tone physically. The perimeter defenders swarm. The rotations are tighter. And teams are realizing that easy nights against Detroit, they're gone. They close out under control. They shrink driving lanes and they recover hard. You don't just score 120 on them casually anymore. And when you combine that defensive identity with Cade's offensive command, that's how real contenders are built. Here's the thing that people miss. Detroit isn't trying to be a league pass team. They're trying to win playoff games. That means half-court execution, defensive disciplines, late-game shot creation, and depth that doesn't implode under pressure. They've built lineups that can defend multiple actions. They're not switching randomly. They're switching with intention. When Stewart hedges high, help is already tagging the roller. When Cade gets doubled, the weak side actually rotates instead of just standing still. These are small details that separate young teams from serious teams, and Detroit is crossing that bridge. Every real contender has that moment late in games where everything slows down. For Detroit, that moment belongs to Cade. He'll snake a pick and roll, he'll drag the big into the mid-range, he'll hit the step back, or he'll rifle a pass to the opposite corner without even looking. That's playoff caliber offense. And when you pair that with a defense anchored by Stewart's physicality and that throwback Detroit mentality, you get a team nobody wants to see in this 7-game series. And look, not that many people are talking about the Pistons, but it's because they've been bad for too long. And look, the NBA media, it doesn't forget quickly. They'll talk about Boston, they'll talk about the Giannis situation, they'll talk about the usual suspects. But Detroit, they're building something quieter. And sometimes, look guys, the quiet teams are the most dangerous ones. Because by the time you realize they're good, they're already confident. Look at the 2025 Thunder. Coming into the 2025 season, they lost in 6 to the Mavs, and they were just still a young team who had years ahead of them to contend. They go out, win 68 wins, and win a championship before anybody saw it coming. The 2023 Denver Nuggets. Going into the playoffs, nobody thought they were going to go to the finals despite being the first seed, despite Jokic having an MVP caliber year, and despite them looking like objectively the best team. The Denver Nuggets dominated the playoffs. So do not sleep on the Pistons this year. And look, there's been a big mental shift with this Pistons team. The biggest difference this year isn't talent, it's belief. They don't look like they're hoping to win anymore. When Cade calls for an isolation, the bench stands up like they know it's automatic. When Stewart rotates over for a block, nobody is surprised. That confidence compounds. And when a young team starts believing defensively, that's when they jump tiers. Now look, is Cade actually an MVP candidate this season? This is a good question, and if the Pistons finish near the top of the East and Cade averages something like 26 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, with elite clutch numbers, because value isn't just stats, it's transformation. And Cade has transformed Detroit from a rebuild into a problem. Now look, the Pistons aren't just a cute story or like a Cinderella team like the 2023 Heat. They're not ahead of schedule, they're structured, they're physical, they're organized, they're led by a star who undergoes temp. And they're led by a star who understands tempo. Stewart brings the bite, the defensive identity brings the edge, JB Bickerstaff brings the disciplines, Cade brings the ceiling. And if the rest of the league keeps brushing this off, they're going to learn the hard way. Detroit doesn't need hype, they need 4 playoff wins in a series. And if this trajectory holds, that's not unrealistic anymore. But if y'all liked the video, subscribe, leave a like, turn on notifications, and until later, I'll see you on Mars. Peace.
You telling me you falling out of love with me. Hope you can find someone to love you better than I did. Taking our memories on love and treating it like nothing. Taking our memories on love and treating it like gossip. It's my love for my grandmother make me gentle when I care for you. Tell me you're falling out of love, breaking my heart in two.